Good afternoon. We're recording an interview with Dave Cottrill. The interview is being conducted by Jeff Bridges and James Mitchell from Wright State University's Veterans Voice Program. This interview is being conducted at Bethany Village in Dayton, Ohio on the 14th of August, 2015. I keep saying that because today's the anniversary, 70th anniversary of VJ Day, 1945.
Yeah.
And that's been locked in the back of my head. Well, Dave, thank you for volunteering to share your history with us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about where you're from and where you grew up and a little bit about your parents?
Okay, I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, and my parents.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. My mom and dad were. My mom was from Portsmouth, Ohio. My dad was from West Virginia, and they got married and came to Columbus, where he was a worker, a laborer, and I went to Ohio State and got into ROTC, the Air Force drill team, and I was impressed. We came over. I was on the drill team, and we came over to Wright-Patterson, and I met some chaplains actually there, and they impressed me enough to think. I was already thinking about the ministry, but I got to thinking about maybe I should consider the military chaplaincy, and so I started following that up, and I took the 8-hour qualifying test, the officer's qualifying test, and then the president decided he didn't need chaplains going through that program, that there were enough volunteers. So I put that aside for a few years and went on to seminary, and then started serving in the church. And my church, which is the Episcopal Church, requires everybody to be in the parish 5 years anyhow, because they want to be sure that you have your grounding in who you are, what you are, before you go into a military chaplaincy. And so I was serving a church then in Glendale, Arizona, and from there I applied to the bishop for the Armed Forces, and I was sworn in at Luke Air Base. And that began my military career, of which I started off getting 3 assignments before I ever got to my first base. One was to Hamilton. My first one was to Hamilton. Everybody told me how wonderful it was in California, how beautiful. And the next thing I know, they came out on the closing list. Then after the closing list, they assigned me to Montgomery, Alabama, and we came back to Ohio to tell everybody how close Montgomery was and what a neat deal that was. And so then we got back to Arizona, and the chief chaplain's office had left a message, and so I returned a call, and I learned something about the military there. They asked me if my furniture had moved, and I said no, and they said, "Oh, that's wonderful, because your orders have changed again." And I knew now to always say yes. The truck was just going down the street, but anyhow, we wound up at Shepherd Air Force Base in Texas. My first overseas assignment.
Yeah.
The Republic of Texas.
What year was that? What year did you join?
73.
Okay.
1973. Yeah, I did appreciate the first of all, it was a huge base, and they trained physicians, assistants, and mechanics, and a lot of really interesting things that helped me understand about the Air Force, since it was usually the next school after basic training for a lot of our folks.
Yeah, the medical training is no longer there.
Oh, it isn't?
It moved to Fort Sam,
Oh,
Houston,
when they put
and
it,
they consolidated all
when
the
they consolidated
medicals.
all that? Okay, yeah. Well, it was
Army and Air Force, and
yeah. Well, they did that with the chaplain schools too. They went to Fort Jackson.
So you went from Shepherd Air Force Base to...
Well, then I was talking about, at that time, the chief chaplain's office wanted everybody to have one remote tour, because at that time you basically only had one in your career, and get it in, get it over with, or also do it so that somebody else doesn't have to do it. You know, even if you resign and get out, you've done your. So anyhow, I got orders to Utapao, Thailand, and I went over there in '75 to '76, and got to watch the last B-52s come back to the United States. And it was a real good tour, except remote, and so I enjoyed Thailand
I can
immensely.
think of worse places in Thailand and Southeast Asia than Utapao.
Oh yeah. Well, we saw because our job there was to fly do the clone flights, go get on and visit the bases around Udorn and places like that.
Now, were you there during Baby Lift and New Life?
Um,
Or the Mayaguez?
No, I don't. Well, that we flew over that when I was coming in. They pointed it out to us that was where that was going on. Yeah.
Okay, but you weren't there when they were actually bringing the casualties back to Utapao?
No, well, I don't think so. I didn't get involved with it anyhow.
Okay.
The interesting thing I got into was I was getting ready to go on a flight to go visit the bases, and this real sharp-looking lady in a business suit came out with her little briefcase to get on the C-130. I thought, what in the world's going on? This is a remote tour. It turned out she's the Revlon representative, and Revlon had one of their biggest sales areas was Thailand, even though it's a remote area. A lot of lipstick and a lot of things were being sold. And the troops weren't wearing it either.
No, I was gonna say, obviously to the
But anyhow.
locals, yeah.
Yeah, but
That's amazing.
it was an interesting, and she was of course very friendly and
Yeah,
good, but it was interesting going out on those, and of course, going to the bases, we would have services and see how people were doing and that kind of thing. So that was my introduction to overseas tours, which was good. Got me involved with that. Then I came back to Langley Air Force Base in Virginia, the oldest air base we have, and that was very historic and interesting area.
When you were at Ankara, and as a chaplain, because I'm familiar with Ankara, it's not your typical military installation because a lot of it's located in downtown.
Well, it's also has no flying mission.
Yeah, so
It's an air station.
what was duty like there?
Well, the military basically the military presence was to back up the embassy and to serve JUSMAT and the relationship between the Turkish and American military. And of course, chaplains do the same thing wherever they are. We were there to support our people, and we had we lived on the economy, had a very nice house, and then we rode the route bus to the base, and about 5 miles away every day, and it was exciting because at that time Americans weren't being killed, but the Turks were killing off each other between the conservatives and liberals or communists and whatever you want to call them. They were doing that, so we would hear gunfire in the night, in the evening, but never felt threatened. Although my wife was riding out to the base one afternoon and happened to look down a road, and there were like 30 tanks lined up, and she asked, "What's going on?" And the person said, "Oh, the Turks are just going to have an exercise. That's all it is." 3 o'clock in the morning, we got notified that there had been a coup, and the civilian government had been thrown out. And basically, a lot of them were going to go to jail, and they told us not to go to work that day. So we didn't, and then we were told, interesting to me, a typical military. They said, "Now, when you come to the base, don't wear your uniform." So on the bus stops all around Ankara, Turkey, were guys in civilian uniforms, civilian clothes, with their uniform over their shoulder in a bag.
don't be obvious about anything.
No, don't be obvious.
No.
But anyhow, and we even put out some cute T-shirts that had a turtle on it and said, "I keep a low profile," Yeah, but that was really good. My family was there. The Department of Defense schools were excellent, and Turkey is really a treasure house of Christian history. And there's so much of it that happened there. So one of the delightful jobs I had and the other chaplains was to take our people on tours or pilgrimages around to see the 7 churches of Revelation sites, Antioch, Cappadocia, places like that, and help enhance their understanding of the Bible. Because actually, when I went there, even in seminary, we knew we had a picture, of the ancient sites of Christianity, and then you could get a modern map. But I hadn't put those together. In fact, one of the nicest things our chapel staff did was they did just that. They took a map of Turkey and put the modern site names on it, and the ancient sites, and even biblical reference. So it's really, in
Real
fact, I
easy
still
to-
use it. Huh?
Yeah, real easy to move around and
Oh, yeah.
visit these places with
Yeah,
that
yeah.
modern, yeah.
Now, the most difficult part was that the Turks had a fear of these big, beautiful German buses ruining their highways, so they didn't allow them to put air conditioning in the buses, and so but the buses came still with sealed windows, so you couldn't open them. And some of our summertime tours were really
Miserable.
one referred to it as the rolling. The furnace from hell tour. So, but now, of course, when we went back, we've been back a couple of times, and the tour buses are air conditioned, and it's wonderful. I really enjoyed it. Turkey was probably my favorite all-round assignment.
So you were Turkey, then you went to Scott.
Yeah, to Scott, which was supposed to be at least a 3-year tour, and after about 2 years, we were notified we were going to go to Germany, which was okay, except we were just putting our oldest child, our son, in college, and so we had to send him to his grandparents to actually put him in college, and then while we were already over in Germany, and that was kind of a stressful year of trying to get as a freshman, his phone calls as, I want to take this course, or I want to do this, or I want to do that.
And that's before the real age of the internet and Skyping, where you could do all that.
Oh, yeah, we had nothing like that. In fact, at Utapau, we had to go through the ham operators, so there'd be a long
Mars
line,
station.
to talk to our spouses, and everybody would be shout. When we had our chance, we'd have to shout into this speaker, "I love you," and all kinds of, with all these other people standing in line.
I miss you, homie. Yeah.
So anyhow, yeah, and it's phenomenal how much change has happened, because and from Germany back here, it was $1 a minute talking on the telephone, and
Right.
so it was a decision. Where today we are with Skyping or over the computer stuff, the
Yeah.
communication is just phenomenal
Yeah.
compared to what we went through.
So
Amazing.
you came out of Germany, and you came, next
Well,
station was Wright Pat.
Yeah, but I was at Ramstein, which is
Yeah.
another wonderful area, and I mean, one of my favorite places in the world is Berchtesgaden. We're in the German Alps, and we had family conferences there, and really were able to offer some support to the people. In fact, our conference was really for military all over Europe, so we had people. In fact, when we had been in Turkey, we had even come to one of these conferences in Germany and at Berchtesgaden, and it was really terrific.
Learned to ski there.
I went with our. Oops. We'll put it on hold.
No problem. All right.
Anyhow,
Okay, we're back after a brief break.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you were just talking about life
Skiing.
in Ramstein.
Well,
Berchtesgaden.
Yeah, we took our youth group on a lot of wonderful trips, and we did go. We went skiing, and a lot of people went skiing. I went falling and down the hills. I never could really figure out. I could get it started, but I couldn't figure out how to get the skis to stop. That was kind of frightening. But we also took our youth group over into West Germany, which from Ramstein meant we had to fly in and go across the communist sector, and that was really quite a eye-opening trip for our young people and for us to go over into West Germany. And so there's been every place we've been has been real opportunities to grow and to help people grow. And then from there we did get orders, which actually on my dream sheet, I'd been putting Wright-Patterson on almost from the time I came in, because I did eventually want to go to Wright-Patterson, but phenomenally, the Air Force in its wisdom, which I didn't think happened very often, for my last tour, they sent me back to Wright-Pat, which was really a great assignment, and I wound up serving in the medical center as a chaplain, and that was really a wonderful area to care for people.
Now, you deployed while you were at Wright-Pat for Desert Storm.
Well, actually, no. We received people from Desert Storm and called on them, but actually the night of the Desert Storm happened, we were over at the Air Force Museum having a conference, and that was a rather startling kind of thing, because right in the middle of our presentation in the evening, they stopped everything and announced that, that war had actually been declared, or
And in the middle of the 6 o'clock news.
yeah. And so that was, and then so from there, we prepared to help and help people from there, and we did get some casualties at the medical center from that.
You're in an interesting position, Dad, as a chaplain. It's a very unique experience, especially in the military, because you're not only dealing with the Episcopalian Church, you have to be prepared to provide services to Jewish, Catholic, other denominations,
Or non-believers.
Right.
How did you feel about that, or were you prepared for that when you initially came into the service?
Yeah, actually, I had kind of thought it was going to be like a missionary, and it was. Not that I was out trying to convince people to my way of faith, but I looked at it as an opportunity to meet all kinds of people, and it was. And to work on a staff. I mean, I've had experience working on staffs that no other clergyman of my denomination, unless they've been a chaplain, have had. And I thought it was terrific, and I always felt tremendous support for the chaplaincy too. We've always had people who talked about, well, you should make the chaplains civilian positions, sort of like Red Cross workers, and they'd be in uniform, but But the point is, unless you are in a military uniform, you can't go with the military. So when war breaks out, they send all the Red Cross workers back home, and that's what would happen with the chaplains. And so from the Revolutionary War on, we've had chaplains with the military, which is quite a bit different than just sort of supporting. I feel very strongly that the chaplains provide quite a support role, and actually the modern chaplaincy, more so than even when I was in, because when I was in, it was more the idea that you were at the base and waited for people to come back. But today, today's chaplains, doesn't matter what branch you're in, they are with the troops right on the line. And I think it's a very important ministry.
Not just the Catholic chaplains.
What?
Oh, that used to be when I was in Vietnam.
Uh-huh.
When we were out in the boonies and stuff, we always saw a Catholic chaplain always managed to show up.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And
Surprise you.
and they said, "Where's the Protestants?" Oh, they're back at the base.
Yeah. Well, that's
But,
what we had a reputation, with the, you get all kinds, but basically, I think the chaplains are pretty much interested in being with the people.
Well, that's their congregation.
Yeah, well, and in fact, I've developed some real feeling about that I think the real validity for the chaplaincy is with the people in uniform. Like people at Wright-Patterson, the families really don't need the chaplains as such, as far as I'm concerned. They can go to all kinds of churches right outside the gate. But the things that are unique are having a chaplain visit the flight line, visit where people work, be with the people in uniform, and that's to me a very important ministry, and it always will be.
Well, especially at the hospital.
Yeah.
Especially if there's anything anywhere they should be. They should be.
Yeah. I even had to deal with a
Yeah.
family calling from California that they thought military medicine was second class, and they were really upset, that their loved one was going into our medical facility. And so it didn't take me much to start on them, trying to explain to them that this was first-rate care, and
Yeah.
it wasn't second rate.
Right.
And I think I helped them understand that they were not just being
Right.
turned aside, that they were getting really top
You
rate
didn't
care.
set General Roadman on him.
Well, he was,
He was one of the finest commanders I ever
he
served
was,
for.
yeah, he was, yeah.
One of the things that I've always enjoyed, especially with military chaplains, is when they would have a non-denominational, all denominational services,
Yeah.
because I thought that did a lot to
Yeah.
bring the community together.
Yeah, well, it does, yeah, well, and how, what a great thing to do with a military unit, that people come from everywhere and all walks of life, and any way you can. It might be, well, like at Ramstein, I was at Capone Air Station, named after Emile Capone, the Roman Catholic chaplain who was tortured in Korea and killed, which gave me a real pride to serve there at that particular base. But up there was their bomb squad was up there, and they had some wonderful pig roasts, and you get together with everybody, and terrific experience.
You know that Chaplain Capone was eventually awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor
Yes, yeah,
a few years ago.
that was a thrill for me to read that. Well, in fact, somebody made sure I got that paper article about him, and it was a long time coming, but well deserved. I'm not sure how many other chaplains have ever been awarded that. It may be the only one.
7 or 8.
Have they?
Really?
There's 3 or 4 from Vietnam.
Okay.
There's Father O'Callahan, who I met when I was very, very young.
Yeah, probably some from the Bataan Death March.
Oh, yeah,
People like
World
that.
War
was
II.
O'Callahan was the only one from World War II.
Oh, okay.
And Capone was Korea.
Yeah.
And then there was 3 or 4 Navy and Army
Oh,
chaplains
sure.
in Vietnam.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
There was one in World War II on the USS Benjamin Franklin.
Hmm.
Yeah, that
It-
actually it's the Franklin, and that was Father O'Callahan.
Was it?
Oh,
That's
okay.
who I'm thinking of.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
all
but
right.
anyhow,
Yeah.
but again, it's wonderful to think about the chaplains
Mm-hmm.
being with the people, even if it means, well, like the 4 chaplains who went down with the ship and gave their life jackets to the people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
When you look back on your Air Force career, and again, different circumstances because you came in at a much older age,
Mhm,
and,
yeah.
and a little bit more so. What did you gain from your Air Force experience as it reflects to your vocation as a
A priest,
minister?
yeah. I think it was, it definitely was broadening, and gave me experiences that I have constantly relied on. Now I'm, in essence, fully retired, although I'm still assisting at a parish down the street here. But I constantly can reflect back on things that we did, and it also, one of the real wonderful things it did was it made my children citizens of the world. They really benefited from this and have constantly been able to handle tough situations. My son worked for a drama group, in fact, in Philadelphia, and they went on a tour that was supposed to go to Budapest and several places overseas, and they got stuck in an airport, and my son, although he was the youngest member of the group, was the one who argued and cajoled the people to get him on an airplane and get out of there. So, and I'm sure that came through with his experience of growing up in the military. Well, like in Accra, there were only 120 in the whole school, and so when he went over in middle school, and he immediately was recruited for the football team, the wrestling team, and everything else they could get him on, because there just, there weren't that many bodies, but he was wanted, and he participated, and it was a very positive experience.
what would you say to people that are watching this?
Anybody in the future who would
Yeah.
review this, what would you
Well,
tell them?
I would, first of all, I would say, don't ever consider doing away with the military chaplaincy. There's no comparison between a chaplain who is with the military, with the people, and one who gets pulled out whenever things get hot. And the point is, no matter what denomination you are, when you're in a military situation, especially a wartime situation, you really have an opportunity to be with people, to talk with them, to share their life and their concerns and their fears, and it's a vital role. And it also is an obligation, as far as I'm concerned. Our government, when they can pick us up, ship us anywhere in the world, our government has an obligation. Like it says, we need to have proper food, proper medical care. Well, we also need to be sure our people have proper spiritual care, because even when I was assigned to Germany, we could not go downtown to church because they spoke German. Even though they're Christians, to feel at home is really important, and that's one of the things that a chaplain has an opportunity to do.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Well, even in Turkey, I was the Boy Scout. I was the scoutmaster in Turkey at Accra, and we took our Boy Scouts got to go camping with Turkish Scouts and skiing too with them, those kind of experiences are tremendous for growth opportunities.
Now, over the last few years, within the chaplaincy program, there's been a lot of controversy, pro-con, about some of the things they were involved with and not involved with, and what have you. But one of the things I thought, and I'd be curious on your take, in the last couple of years, we've had our first Muslim chaplains come on board. The Army now has a Sikh chaplain. I guess that's...
Yeah, sure. Everybody's a chaplain, yeah.
Yeah.
So, how do you feel about that?
Well, they even changed the symbol for the Air Force chaplaincy. It used to have a cross and tablets for Christian and Jews. Now it's a more spiritual, non-definable symbol, which is fine. Actually, I met the Imam chaplain at Fort Jackson when a group of the retired chaplains went there for the dedication of the chaplain school, the new chaplain school, which was Army, Navy, Air Force school, and they have a very nice area set up for Muslim people going through, and again, the United States is in the business of supporting its people, not trying to say one is better than the other, and so I think we're on the right track. In fact, with the terrible problems that are going on with the radical jihadists, I think it's great to encourage moderate Muslims like this. I'm sure this Muslim chaplain will do, to encourage people to take a more moderate view, possibly a more informed view, a more modern view of life together. To me, that's the way to do it, not to say, well, you don't belong.
Is there any last thoughts or comments you would like to make?
Well, I feel that my service in the chaplaincy, it was a real privilege. The time went by pretty fast, and I met, obviously I met people that I would never have met, and I traveled. I went into the Air Force with the idea of traveling, and the Air Force provided that opportunity, sometimes not exactly what I wanted. My wife almost divorced me when we got orders to Turkey. She was convinced that I should go alone. But then after we got there, after I dragged her across the Atlantic, it turned out again for her to be a very good assignment too. Yeah. So the chaplaincy, my military experience has been really very good, and also, I think looking on down the rest of my life, the benefits that were offered but to the military, as long as we can, they hold by them, the contract, you can't beat them as far as the physical, health care, everything. To me, it's a wonderful career for people.
We agree.
Well, again, thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I'm glad you could come